Okay, we have gone through just a few of the keywords that I think I wanted to cover. And so what I thought I would do is I'm trying to figure out the simplest way possible to get you to see the game that's being played. And so my immediate thought was, well, what if we just go look at something simple like FICA? And we look at the definitions and the terms that they have defined inside of the FICA insurance stuff, which is part of payroll, and we see what it says. Does it cover us? Is it vaguely covering us, or is it covering something completely different than what we thought we were actually looking at? So what I want to do is we're going to look at FICA insurance, and the FICA is under subtitle C, and it's in the employment section. And what I've done is I've just taken some screenshots of the web page so you can kind of see what's going on. And I haven't really mentioned it up to this point, but I use Obsidian to keep track of all of my notes and all of the information and stuff. And so all of the relevant code sections for the income tax stuff I have put into Obsidian so that I can link everything together and kind of get a picture of what is actually going on, because it's extremely twisted trying to keep up with everything by reading their codes. So there is nothing in here that I've made up. It's all straight from their code sections, but just to kind of expedite things along, that's the way I did it. So what we're looking at right now is Title 26, Subtitle C, FICA Taxes. And looking in there, we have tax on employees, tax on employers, general provisions, and credits. So tax on employees looks like a reasonable place to look. And so then that brings us to 3101, which is a rate of tax, and then 3102, which is deduction of tax from wages. And I've been mentioning wages for a few videos now, so we're finally going to start getting into that. So 3101 states old age survivors and disability insurance. Now, it's funny, they tell us it's Social Security, but in the code, this is what they refer to it as. And you don't want to know what Social Security actually is, because it is absolutely not what we've been told. In addition to other taxes, there is hereby imposed on the income of every individual a tax equal to 6.2% of the wages. Now, I want to point out that this says hereby imposed on the income of every individual a tax equal to this of the wages. So they have equated income as being wages in this particular section. And you'll note from subtitle A that wages are not listed in the gross income section of subtitle A. It's only in the payroll section that it calls it wages. So they are different things. And so anyway, and it says wages as defined in this section. So remember, definitions, you're either going to get a definition from within the section that you're in, or you're going to go out to 7701 and get it, or you're going to go to a dictionary if you don't have it at that point. In this section, and in unemployment section, and in payroll section, they actually give us definitions for all of these things. And you'll see they're actually different definitions. So in here, it says, get the definition of wages in 3121A received by the individual with respect to employment as defined in 3121B. So let's take a look and see what those are. So 3121A, wages. Wages, for the purpose of this chapter, the term wages means all remuneration for employment. So now we've got a new term we need to make sure we understand, including the cash value of all remuneration, including benefits paid in any medium other than cash. Okay, so 3121B tells us what employment was, and it told us to look at it up here. So 3121B says, for purposes of this chapter, the term employment means any service of whatever nature performed by by an employee for the person employing him, irrespective of the citizenship or residence of either. And then it gives me a couple specifications. I, within the United States, or II, on or in connection with an American vessel. And it goes on with some other stuff, but it's not, none of the other stuff is really relevant to us. So unless we're working on an American vessel or we're within the United States. Now, remember, people, I told you, you cannot make assumptions with anything that you're reading in this tax code, or any law for that matter, but especially the tax code. So you immediately determined that when you read this, that you were included in this because you're an employee that is working for an employer within the United States. But don't do that, because they give us more definitions. So and they're all in this section. So I'm not even going to 7701, which has yet another definition for the United States. So I'm sticking to this particular section. So let's look at 3121D, which defines employee. So 3122, any individual who, under the usual common law rules applicable in determining the employer-employee relationship, has the status of an employee. So that definition does include us, because it's the common definition for an employee. It's exactly what you would expect it to be. But don't get too quick in assuming that you're covered under this particular code section, because remember, it has to be within the United States. So we get down here, it doesn't really give us a definition for an employer, but it does give us a definition in 3121H for an American employer, which it defines as the United States or instrumentality thereof. In other words, the federal government. And you're going to see where this all ties together as we go through this. So in this definition, we're considering the definition of the United States. So we have to go look. 3121E provides us the definition for the United States in this code section. It says the term United States, when used in a geographical sense, includes the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, and American Samoa. So in conclusion, the section above said that it had to be within the United States. The United States is defined as only these things. And again, if you were to assume it meant something else, it would have to be in the same class of things, which are territories, U.S. territories. It would be the only other things that you could actually add to this. You could not add the state of Georgia, state of Florida, state of Tennessee. Those are all out of the question. So we come on down here and we get to 3306J. Now, what I did here is I wanted to show you just from FICA, right below it is the unemployment tax. The unemployment tax contains a completely different definition for the United States. So you'll notice up here in this definition for the United States, it just says Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, and American Samoa. But when you're talking about the unemployment tax, it says, I want to show you, did I mess it up? Hold on. I skipped what it said, or no, I'm sorry. So I want you to read this first. United States, let me get this thing a little bit. The United States, when used in a geographical sense, includes the states, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. Now, you'll notice that the other two places that were listed up above aren't even in here, but you'll also notice the use of the term states, which was not used in the FICA stuff. So we have this new term called states. And again, you probably made the determination before you actually looked anything up that you know what the definition of a state is, and that has to be the state of Georgia and the state of Florida and the state of Tennessee, right? Well, they provided you the definition for state, and state has a definition. It says includes the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So we actually, if we were to plug this value into this value, it's kind of crazy. It says geographical sense includes the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. They literally are the same thing. So state and United States, as defined in this code section for unemployment taxes, are that. It's those four things. So you and I make the assumption that we know what they're talking about when they make a claim like they did up above. And when you start digging into the definitions that they gave you, and again, if they give you the definition, it's because what they're trying to say is not the common way of saying whatever it is. So when they use the term United States, if they meant for it to be the entire country, they would have said the several states and the District of Columbia. But that's not what they mean, and therefore they provide you a completely different definition. And this gets into the jurisdiction of things as you go along, because you find out that the federal government has no jurisdiction inside of the 50 states. None. Now, they have jurisdiction over certain activities like banking and interstate commerce and those kind of things, but they have no general jurisdiction anywhere in any of the 50 states. The states manage themselves. They're all sovereign. The federal government was actually built off the sovereignty of the state, and the sovereignty of the state came from us, we the people. So none of this would exist without state citizens, and it all builds up from there. And the federal government doesn't have the ability to directly tax any of our income, and it's all a farce. And we are perpetrating it against ourselves by filling out W-4s and W-9s, and we're going to get to that stuff. Right now, my main goal was to show you without any question at all that FICA taxes have absolutely nothing to do with us. So now let's take a look at unemployment taxes.